host, Amber Reese, and welcome to episode 2 of Sound Off. And this is my co-host,
Frederick Silverth. How y'all doing today?
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about 13 reasons why and mental health. So, Freddie, do you want to tell them about 13 reasons why?
Well, 13 Reasons Why is a controversial show, for what? It deals with a variety of topics, one of them being mental health and how to seek help, as well as a variety of other areas within mental health.
So, what would you say draws you into watching 13 Reasons Why?
I would say, one, it's the characters, and two, it's the overall story arc, because it's just the writing is fantastic.
And it's also based on a book, correct?
Yep, it's all based on a book.
Is it a book series?
It's one book, from what I understand.
Okay.
It's a standalone book, as they say.
All right. And for me, I would say I got drawn into it, well, because Freddie put me on. I definitely could resonate with what was going on in the episode as far as like kids being in high school, because it is based in a high school setting. So you get to see like all the trials and tribulations that some kids have to go through as far as dealing, as Freddie said, with mental health, suicide, and grief, and all those things that kids deal with at that age.
So, Amber, you've seen the show, obviously, as you just mentioned.
Yes.
Who's your favorite character
when it
comes to the show?
I would have to say it's a cross between Clay and Jessica. That was the one who was dating Justin, right?
Right.
Right.
Why?
Because Jessica was kind of more of outgoing, you could say, of the group. Like she kind of spoke up, you know, when it was time to, especially in the end. When I think it was when the last tape was discovered and something big happened. I don't know if you don't want to give it away.
We're not going to give any spoilers, folks.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that right now.
All I'm just going to say is watch.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why I resonate with Clay, I would say he's kind of more quiet, but he's weird, but he's kind of the one that was trying to solve the puzzle every time.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
What characters would you resonate with?
That's a tough one. One, I would say Clay, for sure. And another would probably be Alex, in a way. Clay, because, you know, he's the main character's story, obviously.
Right.
You know, he goes through what he goes through in the story. But he also faces what he's dealing with head on. As the story progresses and the seasons get deeper and deeper, you find out like what his tie into this whole thing is. Alex, because, you know, I know what it's like to be the new kid and also be the loner type in high school. So like that was me back in high school, folks. That was literally me about at the age of like 14, 15. That was me. So.
Right. What would you say was your favorite episode or episodes?
Ironically, I'm watching it again, just to watch it again. So I'd say season 1, episode 5, I believe.
And I would have to say I like the end episode, like when it all tied together. And
Which season?
I think it probably would be the last season when everything all tied together.
Season 4.
Right.
Last episode of season 4,
Right.
folks.
So, I would say that, and pretty much all of it, because in a way, every episode tied with that last episode.
So why do you think that with the topics that are brought up within the show, right? Why do you think it's so hard to talk about? Not just in general, not back then, but now.
Because I think not trying to throw shade to the world or anything like that, but I feel like when it comes to certain topics like suicide or using drugs or abortion, anything like that, I feel like we shy away from talking about those topics because people don't want to get deep no more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we live in a day and age and a society where people want things sugar-coated.
Yeah.
And things like drugs and suicide, those are nothing to play with.
Mm.
You know, those are very serious topics. And I feel like people are just not comfortable with talking about things that are heavy. So.
Do you think it's because they're too scared or nervous to talk about those things?
I don't think it's because we're scared or nervous. I just think we kind of hit on it and then we move on to the next thing, which that's pretty much how like society and social media plays a role in today. It's like, oh, today there could be like for instance, you know, with the war going on in Ukraine, like we're hitting on it, but we're not really getting deep into it. Because people are worried about the latest Yeezy or the latest Jordan or who's fighting, you know, who's going live and fighting and putting it on the Shade Room first. You know what I'm saying? So I feel that we just kind of shied away from getting real about what's going on in the world. Because the news is even different now. It's not like back in the day, like in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It's not.
Right.
People are not getting in depth anymore.
And what if somebody was suffering from the matters they talk about in the show, like suicide, drug abuse, things of that nature? What would be the piece of advice that you would give someone going through those kinds of things?
I would say get help. Get the help that you need, whether it be counseling, whether it be getting into rehab, whether it be whatever you need to do to get yourself into a good space. Get the help that you need. Get the resources that are out there that can help you.
So you would say, when you say resources, you're meaning like therapy or
rehab, yeah, all that good stuff.
Okay. So going back to characters, who's your least favorite character?
I would say Justin.
Okay.
I would say Justin because he was just too much of the popular boy, and he just thought his crap did not stink. Trying to think who else. Yeah, I think it was mainly him. Tony was alright.
Tony was alright.
Yeah. I love Tony, but I'm not trying to give any spoilers as to why. Just know that he was a real friend. That's all I'm gonna
Yeah, I have to agree with Amber on that one, folks. Tony was the standout character for me. Tony was the one that kind of creeped up behind you, and was like the best friend you never had,
Right.
kind of thing. And I think as you watch the show and you get to know these characters, that's how you feel, you know. And so why really is Justin your least favorite character?
Because I feel like he was like the popular boy. Like everybody wanted to be around Justin. But, and also in retrospect to that, he also went through a lot too, like with his mom and his family background. So I kind of understood why he built up this golden boy image per se, because he wanted to be liked and idolized by everyone, because he wasn't getting that at home.
Right. So do you want to know who my least favorite character is?
Yes, what are your least favorite characters? I would love to know that.
Number one would probably be Bryce. Bryce is my least favorite. No spoilers, folks.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not going to
Bryce,
say what.
yeah,
But
I definitely agree with Freddie. Now that he's bringing this,
Bryce is my least favorite, but when season 3 came up, now, to be clarification, folks, there are 4 seasons. Each season is different, but when season 3 came up, I was flabbergasted by the trailer. Anybody that's seen the show knows what I'm talking about. Like we said, we ain't gonna give out spoilers or anything like that.
No spoilers over here.
But when you saw season 3, without spoiling it for the folks at home, were you really surprised by it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Why?
yeah. Because, okay, well, I'm going to say that I wasn't expecting the person to do what they did.
Right.
It was shocking, but it was like, ah. But I would say I was just shocked for that reason.
Okay. So, let's talk about the last season, season 4. Do you think the series as a whole ended on a good note? Do you think they covered everything they could have in the time frame that they had?
Honestly, I mean, I wish that it had like 5 or 6 seasons, because I would have loved to seen them get out of high school and become the young adults that they were starting to become. I would have loved to see more personally, and it kind of makes me want to get the book and just read it to get a more in-depth of understanding, because I never read the book before, by the way.
Well, there's 2 versions of the book.
There are.
There are. And I was actually looking for it this morning. There is a 10th anniversary edition of the book, and then the original text when it came out. I wasn't able to find it in PDF form, but I'm gonna eventually get it.
I love the smell of new books. I'm a new book kind of girl. I love to read, so for me, it's like I love the smell of a new book.
Okay.
Like I like to feel it in my hands. I like to flip the pages.
Okay.
Call me old-fashioned if you want.
So what is it about books and reading that draw you in when it comes to books in general?
Reading for me was definitely something that, once again, my mom established from the time I was a little girl. Reading for me was a way to escape, because I have cerebral palsy, so I'm not able to walk. have spastic cerebral palsy to be exact. So for me, it was a way to escape from not being sad, of like not going outside and being able to hang with friends or family. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I still was able to do those things just differently, but reading for me was a way to escape.
And what is your favorite nonfiction book and fiction book?
What is my favorite nonfiction? And I'm trying to think. Have I read any nonfiction books lately? I can't even remember, but I used to be gravitated to this book. It's a nonfiction. No, not nonfiction. It's a fiction book, by the way. As a little girl, it's called Chicken Sunday, and it was about this old lady that would get these kids, and she would always make stewed chicken every Sunday. And then, for those that don't know what stewed chicken is basically you fry chicken and you smother it down in gravy with onions, and it's really good, by the way. If you grew up with it, then you know. So, that book for me was always my favorite book. Actually, I have two, and then it was going someplace special. I can't remember like what the book was really about, but I know as a little girl that used to always be my favorite book. And a non-fiction book, I'm trying to think.
Nonfiction could be a biography of somebody's life.
I know, but I'm trying to think of one that I've actually read that I know one. Bob Marley.
So why Bob Marley?
Well, as you know, Freddie,
I know, but the folks at home
is
may
my
not know.
favorite singer. Yes, I got put on to him by my mom at 9 years old, and I fell in love just with his messages, his music, his lyrics. Because I don't know if you know, but back in those days, you know, in that country, Jamaica, like Bob Marley was considered like the lyrical newspaper because a lot of people couldn't read. So his songs would be talking about things that were going on. Like, for instance, the song War. It was, do you know that song was a speech?
No.
By Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Jamaica. I mean, if you guys, I might be saying this wrong, but you guys can correct me in the comments when this is posted. But it was taken from one of his speeches. So, yeah. And I would have to say my favorite song would be No Woman, No Cry. Because it basically talks about, you know, him growing up in like Trenchtown. Because that's where he's from.
So, my favorite book, I don't know if you read this in middle school, Amble, but one of my favorite books is The Outsiders.
No, I didn't. I never read that book.
It was about the Socs and the Greasers. You read it in like sixth grade, I believe.
It sounds familiar, but I just don't know if I read it.
That book, that's a good book. But who's your favorite author?
That is a good question because I never had a favorite author growing up as a kid. I was just the kid that I always read like the back of the book. And then like if it caught my attention. Oh, I do have a favorite author, but she does urban fiction, Sister Soldier.
So who's that?
Sister Soldier, she you know, Midnight, the coldest winter ever.
Well, explain to the folks at home.
All right, so
because I have no recollection of
for
this.
the viewers at home that don't know who Sister Soldier is, she does urban fiction books. So I don't know if you guys read like The Coldest Winter Ever, Midnight. Midnight Against the Love Story, and then there's Midnight, A Meaning of Love. Yeah. So that book for me, kind of like the first author I fell in love with. And I was in high school reading those books because those books are kind of, if you know urban fiction, you know, them type of books, those are not really good for like 15, 14-year-old to read, but I think you can read them anyway. So that for me right there was my introduction to a good author. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I have more, I just can't think of any right now.
So what would you say to someone that was thinking about suicide or taking drugs or anything like that, going back to 13 Reasons Why?
Again, I would say definitely reach out for help. Talk to anyone. Like, find someone in your circle that you can trust to be able to talk about what you're feeling. And, you know, you never know. Reaching out to the right person can get you the help that you need. And that also ties into, you know, what we were talking about, is making sure that the people in your village and that you surround yourself with are going to be there for you no matter what. Right. Because you don't want people in your circle that are always going to be like, yes, 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 yes. Sometimes you got to hear that no. You know what I mean? Right. And sometimes you got to hear the raw, ugly truth about yourself. Believe me, I know, because I went through, you know, those type of experiences. And sometimes it's not going to be pretty. But in those moments, you have to hear those things about yourself. So make sure you have someone in your circle that you can go to. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your mom. I don't care if it's your dad. I don't care if it's your brother. I don't care if it's your sister. There has to be somebody in your circle where you can be like, hey, I need help. Can you help me?
Right. So, personal question. Have you ever gone to counseling before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And do you think therapy helps you?
Oh, yeah. By the way, shout out to Jordan and Christine, because recently, 2 years ago, I had lost my older sister, and I was going through other things at the time. And things got to the point where it was getting bad for me, so I just made the decision to go get help. And also, when I was a little girl, and I had lost both of my grandparents, and, you know, my teacher was noticing the change, you know, she reached out to Mom, and, you know, she told her, you know, let's put her in counseling. And I definitely think that that was a good decision that my mom and my teachers made, because it has really helped me, even now as I'm doing it now. I feel that counseling, you may go in for one thing, and then you find out multiple things of why things keep happening in your life. So no, I feel like you're just not going in there for one thing, because you find out multiple things about yourself, and you be like, this is why I do this, because I keep allowing this to happen, or this is what I need to let go. And it's nice to get a perspective about yourself from someone that doesn't actually know you, because sometimes an outsider looking in can really give you a deep and profound perspective about yourself.
So I've gone to counseling since I was maybe 12, and I'm still going to counseling just like everybody else, right? So all the counselors I've had have been like 60 plus. And the guy I'm talking to now, shout out to my counselor, I feel like he's the one person that I can really talk to. Because like I said, most of my counselors are like older than me. But the guy is my age, has a life, but I really think that I can connect with him more than any other counselor that I've had. So to you, is that number one on your list, or is there a list of qualities that you find in a counselor that
I definitely feel there has to be some type of connection. Because I didn't start out, with Jordan. I had Christine first, and then when Christine went to go for another position, I had Jordan. So at first I wasn't sure, but now, Jordan has literally become the other sister. She knows basically everything. So, yeah. I definitely think you have to have a connection with that person. So, what would you say is the biggest thing that you've taken away from counseling?
Just when you go into sessions, right? That's what they're called. Be yourself. Be honest. And be open enough to say things to your counselor. Because the one thing I always say to my counselor is I try to be as authentic as I can, right. At any given moment, at any given time. Right. So Amber, we're coming to the end of our show, folks. So Amber, what advice would you give to the viewers out there when trying to seek a professional?
Definitely, Google, call around, because you never know. You will come across the right person, believe me, I know. Number 2, I would say, like I said, definitely reach out to friends and family, because you never know. Somebody could be going through the same thing you're going through, or has been through the same thing you've been through, and they can lead you in the right direction. So.
Well said. Well, folks, that's the end of our show. I'm Frederick Sobrith.
And I'm your host, Amber Reed.
And we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.